What's with these damn ducks? What? I need to get my ducks in a row. All lined up, something for the portfolio, so I can help the business grow. Oh, I see. Well, here, let me show you a finance channel that'll know the answers to your questions and everything you need to level up, to get these damn ducks in a row.
Hi, Nat.
Hello, Kamelah. How are you?
I'm good. Can we just start here?
Yes.
So, I would like to inform you that out of every video that we've posted, your shorts and your videos have gotten the most views.
Love to see it. That's great news.
Even though they're completely taken out of context, the children are confused.
As they should be. That means they don't know enough.
Yeah, they didn't watch the whole video. They only watched some shorts and here and there, and they're talking about hormone blockers and all sorts of stuff. Even though they're confused, it's still a
conversation. Which we never brought up, and which I also never said I was a fan of.
Yeah.
They assume things when they see liquid eyeliner, but I don't know how much I want to explain that.
Somebody did mention both of our appearances, by the way. So I had to take out my wig, and here I am.
Let them know.
Yeah, let them know. Sometimes I look homeless. Sometimes
I'm serving I look sweater and man bun because I'm at work in my office with my windows behind me.
It's nice.
Thank you.
It's really nice. I like your office. So everybody in my office wants you to talk to us about religion and government and how they work together.
Oh.
Because briefly in a previous video, you mentioned how government is like a spinoff from religion. I don't know. I can't quote you right now.
Yeah.
But everybody was like, can you ask him to elaborate on that? And I was like, whatever.
Yeah, I want to know. That's a really interesting question because the way I believe I would have phrased it was that I believe from my study that religion is pretty much one of the oldest forms, if not the oldest form of social organization. Before we had politics, before we had governments, before the Industrial Revolution, before you were identified by your occupation, you were identified by whether it was a tribal religion or an Abrahamic religion or spiritual practices that weren't considered religion but are more cultural. Those are primary early forms of social organization. So when I say that they come from each other, when we look at how a lot of governments that like if we look at England 400 years ago, like the Anglican Church was made as to be tied to the English throne, and so it was a way of making morality legal and religious. They worked together because the king said things had to be a certain way, and then the king controlled the church, so you can either argue with God or the king because they're both going to tell you the same answer. That's what I mean by they work together and how they can be used to be forms of the same thing. When you look at since the 1970s in America, when you look at the modern evangelical movement, they have also tied themselves toward a Republican conservative identity. They don't always work together. Not everybody votes with their politics. Not everybody votes with their brings their politics into their religion. Not everybody takes their political beliefs to church. But those that do, there's a continuum. They can feed into each other. They don't have to, but they often can.
So you are a complete heathen. No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. I'm just wondering, like, how a guy like you ends up knowing so much and studying so much about religion. Did you study it? Was it required? Were you raised in the church?
Kind of all. So I grew up with my grandmother, who is very, very religious, and she went to Southern Baptist Church, and so did I. Her sisters, her older sister Sandy, that she was closest to, was also very religious, had Bible study at her home. So I grew up very much immersed in it, and I think that a lot of young gay people really shy away from it because they experience religion and church as a side of rejection. But I thought that if this is what you want to use to say terrible things about me in a group or specifically, I'd better know what the hell it is. Why should I take your word for it if you're using it against me? Let me figure out what it is. I should study. I should know what's going on. If you want to say that I'm this, that, and that because of this book, well, let me read it. Let me find out what else it says. Let me, like, I'm not gonna, I'd like to hope that no weapon formed against me shall prosper, but I'd like to know how weapons work if they're going to be used against me. I don't
Right.
think anybody should know more about guns than the people who want them regulated and banned, right?
Right.
So that was my interest in studying it. And then I also took that academically. I took classes in Jewish studies and classes in Latin American religions when I was in college and undergrad. Yeah. I always found it very interesting because my degrees in sociology and race theory, I took classes on African American religions as a part of my African American studies major. And you can't study social theory without having some context of religion, because who are they trying to talk to? Who are they trying to answer to? Like, what problems are they trying to address? Problems that didn't get solved by religion and morality, problems that didn't get solved by government.
Mm-hmm. Why were you studying Jewish studies?
Because where
Did you choose that?
I chose that. Yeah, it was an elective that fit in my schedule. I chose that because when I was growing up in the woods, well, okay, something that a lot of people don't know about the South is that, like, when I was growing up in Kentucky, because the KKK is not just anti-Black, they're also very anti-Semitic, and people forget about that. There are some, I don't want to say it's a lot, but there are communities in the South of very, very light-skinned, quarter Black, eighth Black people who it's just easier to say that they're Jewish. And they don't really consider it to be like a betrayal of anything, because the KKK is still going to burn down their house anyway, too. So it just makes more sense for them to say that than it would be for them to say that they're Black. So that
Mm-hmm.
was part of it in my own, like, cultural history of where I'm from. But the other thing was just watching TV in the early 2000s and the late 90s, being a little kid. It was like, oh, white people who let their emotions out? That's interesting. I'd like to see more of that. Because,
Mm-hmm.
if your options are very, very waspy and very, very contained, and then a culture that is all about like words and language and expression, that's exciting.
Yeah.
And art and culture, that's exciting. It's a contrast. So I wanted to know more.
Yeah. Why? Okay, this might not be a fact,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like one of the gayest places on earth is a Black church.
Of course. The
I don't
music
understand
section.
why though. Why?
Because typically they're all in the choir, and it's because it's the one place that's emotionally expressive. It's the one place you can let it all hang out. It's the same reason why people that eventually leave the church are the ones who were catching the spirit the most frequently. They had all these feelings that they got to do something with. And so that's part of it. But then the other thing is, it's the perfect alibi. How could I be gay? I'm at church 3 days a week. Wouldn't everybody know?
Hmm.
Like, I have a wife and 2 children, and everybody knows me and loves me, and I'm a pillar of my community. What do you mean I'm a what? That
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a
Interesting.
really easy cover.
Okay. So I'm assuming your grandmother was Southern Baptist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. My parents were baptized.
Mm-hmm.
I consider them to be Southern Baptist.
Mm-hmm.
I was not baptized.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe any of this. I don't
Mm-hmm.
believe anything that's going on. I don't believe any religion. I know there's a God. I know there's a God, because this is too perfect. I can't even
Mm-hmm.
manage like 3 people.
Haha.
For the earth to turn and the plants to grow and the animals to do everything, like it's remarkable. So there has to be a God. I don't think he's participating. I don't think he's
Okay.
participating. What are your religious or spiritual beliefs?
They're all over the place. They're
Mm.
everywhere and nowhere. I would say that a lot of it comes from the Southern Baptist traditions that I grew up with, but not all those fit. So then you fill that in with other religions. You fill that in with other beliefs. So I also fit in a little bit of some of the things I learned about Judaism into my own spiritual practice. There are also ancient forms of and from different parts of Africa. Um, I don't want to use the term witchcraft because it bothers people, but in the same way that Santeria is considered witchcraft, but not witchcraft, it's a spiritual practice that has rituals.
Yeah.
That's also a part of it for me. I think it's a blend and a fusion is really important. I think that if one thing doesn't seem right for you, instead of throwing away the entire concept, keep studying and put stuff together for yourself. Because if you don't do well in Spanish class, you don't say, I'm never studying a foreign language again. You try French, you try German, because you have to get the credits and you have to finish school.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of witchcraft, I had a very Christian Baptist coworker. And she was like, things aren't going well for me. I wish I could do something. And I was like, on the next full moon, put you a bottle of water in a clear glass jug, sit it out in the moonlight, and tape your intentions on it, like more money, this or this and this, and sit it out in the moonlight. And the next day, you drink the water and you're drinking your intentions and you're drinking what you want. And she looked at me like blasphemy. She was like, I would never do that. And it was completely dismissed.
Well, I mean, I understand that. I had to be talked into tarot cards, and I will absolutely never go to a psychic. Will never happen.
Why?
Anything that God wants me to know, he'll tell me. I don't need to go through you or anybody else. I'm not trusting any intermediary when it comes to all of that. I don't need your filter. I don't know what you've been through. I don't know what's on your mind. I don't want to find out. You
You
might
know
see
what?
some that ain't got nothing to do with me, and I don't want to be a part of it. No, thank you.
Wow. As a person who's been to a psychic, not in decades, like when I was in my early 20s, you could be like in New Orleans and like there's psychic places everywhere. A lot of different places I went, there was like psychics, but I've been to a lot. That's kind of how I feel about therapy.
Oh,
I
I'm
don't
also not a fan.
really.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me feel good. I always say, when you were talking about like if God wants me to know something, he'll tell me, and I don't need you to be the only way I would have a therapist if it was an alien or an elephant, or if it just wasn't a person having a human experience. A friend of mine, random story, a good friend of mine went to a therapist regularly, like once a week, could call her between and run things by her and everything like that. My friend called me one time and was sobbing on the phone. I couldn't even it took like 30 minutes for her to get out what she called me for. I thought her mom had died or something like that. Her therapist committed suicide.
Surprise, surprise. Well, it's because because this is a solution that they proposed to you. Maybe that happened because her therapist wasn't a part of the never-ending chain of therapists. Because if you offer therapy all day, you're supposed to go to someone else for you to unload. And then they're supposed to go to someone else to unload. And then they're supposed to go to someone else to unload. And then we're all eventually just supposed to give all our money away to strangers who don't know anything about us, who barely finished school. That's the solution. You're supposed to be a permanent medical patient for everything that ever happens to you, and there's not supposed to be any solution to anything.
Right. That's completely how I feel about
Because
it.
it's not like a situation where, well, of course, doctors have to go to other doctors. Well, yeah, there's things inside your body that you can't see or feel.
Yeah.
That's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Because you don't. So something that I found very interesting. So my sister is a licensed clinical social worker, and she has offered therapy to patients as part of jobs she's had in the past. When you go to school to do that, you don't learn any of the theory behind what you're doing. I know social theory. My sister knows how to administer therapy. I know why she's doing what she's doing. She knows how to get through the steps.
Okay.
But they do not train them in any how or any why. That's why therapy kind of doesn't work for any deep problem. If any of your problems are systemic or, really like societal, they're, what are they going to do about it?
Yeah.
Tell you to ignore racism, tell you to try and have a happy attitude about your dad being an alcoholic. Like,
Right.
we can't positive think our ways out of poverty. Like, if there's like actually something real going on and you don't just have like upper middle class champagne problems, they can't help you. The kind of person who's always in the therapist office is not the person who knows how to deal. They're the kind of person that's always at therapy.
Yeah.
Because we all have those friends that are always in it and they never really get any skills, because if you got better or learned anything, you wouldn't give them $175 a week anymore. Capitalism makes it so no one has a vested interest in helping you anytime soon. Why would they want anything other than a permanent patient?
Right.
What do
Right.
they get out of you fixing yourself? Their kids aren't going to go to college if you can solve your own problems.
Right.
Like,
Right.
let's use our brains here. Like, they're not your mom, they're not your dad, they're not looking out for you. They don't care. They don't
Right.
have to. It's not their job. They're to get you to
In,
next Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. That's it. That's it.
in
Think
my
of it like a
former,
hairdresser. They're supposed to
yeah,
get you to your next appointment.
in my former life, I helped people with intellectual and developmental disabilities find services and places to live and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
So I used to have to sit, it was like required for them to go through some kind of therapy or counseling and all sorts of things. So I sat in a lot of therapy sessions. I remember I remember going to a therapy session with a young lady that had a problem with men. She wanted to sleep with all of them. So there's that. And I remember going to her therapist's office for the first time. Her therapist weighed about 400 pounds. I swear to you, she looked like Tammy off of Half Ton Sisters.
Okay.
She was
Okay.
huge. So she
Okay.
sat there, and I sit at the back of the room, and my client sits here, and they have their conversation. And she's telling her about self-discipline, personal restraint, saying no, not giving in to temptations. And while she's talking, she's breathing hard like she just ran up the stairs or something. And I'm just sitting here like, if this works, how come you can't apply it to your own life?
And then they want to pull out psychics can't read themselves. You don't have a gift from God. You have a master's degree. Stop it. That's not a valid excuse.
Look.
Don't give me that psychics can't read themselves nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah. Matt, I wish you could
because that's like
him.
saying I have a PhD in mathematics and I'm bankrupt and I can't balance my checkbook.
Correct.
We can do complex calculus past the third degree, and you don't know that if you make $3,000 every 2 weeks and you spend $4,000 that you're screwed. You can't put that together.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Bet. I believe you. Sure.
Insane. I walked out of a doctor's office for the same reason, because I went there to get cleared to get liposuction. I didn't get the liposuction because, life happens. And everybody talked me out of it. And by the end of it, I thought I was going to end up like Kanye West mom, because so many doctors told me no. But so I'm in the doctor's office and I'm trying to I can't wait to talk to the doctor so I can ask him, can I have a little nip tuck? And his nursing assistant or some lady comes in. She's overweight. She's not the person for me to be having the conversation with, because I'm half her size. So I'm in here like, hey, I'm trying to get some weight loss. I'm trying to do this. And she's like, oh, you don't need it. Why? My BMI is high. Why do you think I don't need it? Tell me. Because I'm smaller than you? I didn't say that out loud, but that's what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying
Mm-hmm.
to get her to give me a legitimate reason. And then after that, I didn't go back to that doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Because first of all, why are you fat? And you're giving me health advice? I don't know. Couldn't do it.
Well, I'm not quite there with it because that gets into a very like, if you're fat, get out of my sight. I don't want to look at you. Go hide for the
No.
same
A fat
people in
nurse,
1800s.
healthcare professionals.
I think that's
Healthcare
fine.
professionals?
Do you know how much nurses get paid? How are they going to go to Whole Foods and take care of their kids and go to 3 yoga classes a week when they have to work all these doubles? Being in great shape takes time and energy. It doesn't if you make 60 grand a year and you have 3 kids, you're going to be eating Burger King on the way home and you're going to be eating Little Debbie's at night. Like, let's be realistic about how things are for people who have real problems.
But shouldn't you be held on a higher standard? To me, this talks about like police panicking and shooting people, right? Like if you're in this role where you're a healthcare professional and you're
Mm-hmm.
giving people advice about nutrition and their diets and how to be healthy, like shouldn't you be healthy? Shouldn't that be a requirement?
I don't necessarily think that I'm not into jobs with weight limits, really. I don't like that.
Oh, I am. My personal trainer got a little chunky, and I was like, mm-mm.
I think fat people are the last minority that people are allowed to be really rude to in public, and I'm not cool with that. I'm not, I don't know.
So
If there's,
if you had a hairdresser whose hair was never done, never cute, she's balding on the side, her edges are thinning.
what's the difference between that and a hairdresser who wears a wig and you'd never know?
At least she wears a wig and I'd never know. At least you can, at least you can manipulate this. At least you can, present properly.
I've been fat, I've been skinny. I still knew everything I knew when I was fat or skinny. I don't really care. I just don't read into it. I mean, if there's no fat there, you really don't want any fat nurses and any fat doctors. Well, really, really, if the hospital was full of 130-pound healthy people, who's going to be on Instagram? Like, somebody has to have these real jobs, and the pretty people are off doing pretty people shit.
I'm not talking about pretty people. I'm talking about if you're going to tell me that my blood sugar is off, if you're going to tell me that I'm unhealthy, if you're going to tell me about health,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you should be unhealthy.
Well, you don't know their blood work. You don't know anything about their levels just off
You're
looking at them,
obese.
because I have been a classical singer since I was 11 years old, and I would
Mhm.
really encourage you, if you ever get the opportunity, to go to a rehearsal or a dress rehearsal for an opera, because you're going to see 250-pound men and women roll around on the floor, get up and down off their knees with no help on a rake stage at that 30 degrees. So I will never believe that just because someone's large doesn't mean that they're physically not able to do certain things, or that their blood work's messed up, or that they don't know what they're talking about, or that they can't do a physical job, because I have seen it and I see it all the time. So I know that it's real, and I think it's worth looking at how we perceive everything.
Can we agree that being overweight isn't healthy? Being grossly overweight isn't healthy.
But what, it's not up to you, because then grossly, that is an adjective that is subjective, and then it's
Okay.
up to you, and then it's whatever you do and don't want to look at, and get over it. Like, in
So
broad picture, boo-hoo, get over it.
is being super morbidly obese? Because there's obese and then there's super morbidly obese. Can we agree that that's not
I've
healthy?
seen people who weigh 100 pounds more than me who can do stairs faster than me. Things are possible. I'm not ruling it out. I'm not ruling it out.
Okay.
If you are 50 pounds underweight, you're going to die. If you're 50 pounds overweight, you can live to be 80.
Okay. I personally, I don't want a fat nurse. I don't want a fat doctor. I'm fat. You can't, if a bigger person is trying to tell me how to lose weight naturally.
Who's going to know more about how to lose weight than someone who's tried every single way? Someone who's naturally genetically
And
blessed and
still
has
couldn't
never
do
had to
it?
tell you work.
And still couldn't do it though? If you tried all the diets, is it the diets didn't work or you didn't work? Did you
That's
not
like
stick to it?
that's like saying every person with a PhD who stays in academia couldn't compete in the real world. Just because they know it and they chose to apply it differently doesn't mean that it's not real. It's up to them.
But if you've tried all the diets and they
Mm-hmm.
didn't work for you, does that
Mm-hmm.
mean they didn't work or does that mean you didn't work?
Who knows what they're going to try next year and how that's going to work out?
I
I
don't
can't
want a
tell the
fat
future. I
nurse.
don't know.
I
Mm.
don't want a fat nurse. I don't
Well,
want a fat doctor.
I don't want everybody getting gastric sleeves and gastric bypasses. They can't drink water. They don't absorb nutrients. Their hair falls out. Like none of that's worth it. So it is way easier to learn how to figure out to deal with whatever the hell is wrong with you in your mind and turn it into something that's a part of you than it is to go get cut up and sliced open and feel terrible about yourself every minute of the day.
So
Because
I'm not
how are they going to focus on giving you the care that they need, the care that you need, if they're worried about how fat they look in scrubs? If they're worried about thinking every patient thinks they're a big dumb fat you know what, how are they going to focus on doing their job that they went to school for and you didn't and you couldn't do even if they asked real nicely? What about that?
I agree, but I'm not saying everybody should be thin. I'm not thin by no means. I'm
Mm-hmm.
chunky. I'm a little thick.
Mm-hmm.
I got a little, I got a little extra. But in some categories,
Mm-hmm.
healthcare, fitness, nutrition, I think these people should be fit.
Okay, fine, you regulate that, and then it turns into the flight attendants have weight restrictions again. It turns into the waitresses and bartenders have weight restrictions again. It will slippery slope all its way to the most misogynistic shit you've ever seen in your life.
You think so?
Because how are they going to stop you from getting an LLC because you weigh whatever? Like it will all go to hell because it'll be just like back when people used to keep their disabled family members in secret rooms. You're fat, you can't do anything, we don't want to look at you. It goes to hell. You can't start with that and then expect it to stay there. They're fat. They deserve to be able to go to school and have any job and do whatever they're doing if they can pass the regulations and the tests and the mental acuity. If they check that box saying that they could lift and do whatever for 50 pounds or whatever it requires, if they can do it, they can do it. It's not up to me what they look like while they do it. And I hold fast to this because like even back when I dated, I am not somebody who exercises or watches what they or eat. So if you also don't exercise and don't watch what you eat and you happen to weigh 280 pounds, guess what? We do the same thing and I don't get to be mad at you for looking different. Just because I'm in the lucky part of it doesn't mean I get to have all these standards. Like, no,
Is
no.
it is it lucky or is it like skill? Because I know for a fact when you're performing on stage, you're
Mm-hmm.
standing up for a long time. When you had to train
Mm-hmm.
for singing, you had to exercise and
Mm-hmm.
you have to make sure your lung capacity is good. I
Mm-hmm.
know for a fact you live a different lifestyle. Okay, you walk a lot of places, you stand up, you're not
Mm-hmm.
sedentary all day every day, so you have a lifestyle change, and it's not.
If you saw my phone on days I don't leave my house, I average about 400 steps a day. There are large people who do way more than I do and are in better shape. I promise you, the fact that I weigh 165 does not mean jack nothing. Because on that last episode, on one of the episodes we've done here, I also talked about how I have high blood pressure, and because I'm thin, the doctors just ignore it and don't see it, and yada, yada, yada. So, from my own empirical experience, from myself and from people I've seen, I believe in health at every size because I literally know that it's real. I literally know that just because I'm skinny and I'm not healthy doesn't mean anything. And just because someone else is fat and they are healthy, that's worth considering. I'm very painfully aware of it. Because when all it means is that you're not burdening anybody by making them think that they have to look at something that it looks like there's something wrong. I don't set off any red flags or alarm bells, so I'm
Mhm.
fine. But somebody else who upsets your sense of what you should be forced to look at or consider, no, that's not a good reason. No. Oh, well, they should look different because they have that job. Well, you just got told shit because your hair didn't look right for the last episode. What if you wanted to be all natch forever? What if you didn't want to wear that wig?
Right.
What if there were certain jobs that you had to have a wig for because I said you're supposed to look good because I said? You. That's the response.
Okay.
Can't have it every way. Can't have it every way.
I see your point.
It can't only be okay when you want to do it. That's no metric.
It can't be okay just when, like, in certain categories, because you feel like people are so untethered that instead of being like, okay, I 100% think that my doctor shouldn't be overweight.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think my doctor should be a sloppy, fat white man. I don't want that as my doctor. Go on with your life. I'll find someone else. Let me call my insurance. Who else will cover me? Like, I don't want that. I don't think that's bad. I think that's totally acceptable. But it sounds like you're saying that people are so crazy that this will trickle off into different situations, into different
There is not a
professions.
single social situation where people are not in a hurry to be the worst version of themselves. Look around, leave your house. Everyone is looking for the smallest excuse to do the worst possible thing. It don't take much.
Okay.
It don't take much.
To me, this almost sounds like a bank robber
Mm-hmm.
that's outside talking about how we need to stop crime in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a bank robber.
Mm-hmm.
And you're at a crime rally. This doesn't add up. You need to become a better person. You need to become a person that doesn't do crime to speak on the crime rally,
Mm-hmm.
to speak about, like, to minimize crime.
I'd argue that
This
you need a
lady is talking to me.
PhD. I'd argue that you need a PhD in nutrition to mouth off like this. If we want to use your logic, I'll use it right back against you. You
Do
go through
I?
you go through all their schooling, you become as
Okay.
educated as they are, you spend the
Okay.
time that they did, and then we'll see who gets to do what. Because you might think that they need to look a certain way. I'm more worried about the fact that they're educated a certain way on a certain level by accredited institutions. Do I want some skinny guy to pretend to be a doctor, have fake licensure from another country that's not valid over here, and lie in my face and make me feel good? Or would I rather deal with a fat person who is very well educated and knows what's going on? I'm not saying those are my only choices, but I'm
Yeah.
saying I do not need the appearance of things looking right. I need you to be educated and to put it in practice for me. I do not care what it means for you when I'm not your patient. I care what it means for me when you are treating me. I care what your expertise and what your knowledge means for me when I'm dealing with you.
Okay. Let me give you a story, okay?
Okay.
Let me give you a story. First off, before I go into my story, I don't think these degrees mean anything. I think they're paid for, they're bought. I don't know how much these people are teaching you at this point. I have a degree, I have a minor in some stuff. I don't know how much that I know that can be applied in real world situations, just being honest. But let me tell you my story, okay? This is there was a really, really, the hardest time of my life. Both of my parents were in the hospital at the
Mm-hmm.
same time for a month, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I felt like an orphan. I felt like I was abandoned. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't have wise counsel. What I would ask my mom for, she's in the hospital. What I would ask for my dad, he's in the hospital. I
Okay.
have never been so handcuffed in my life, okay? I have a half brother that I don't get along with by no means. My cousin calls him and tells him to come to Colorado, okay?
Okay.
So she tells me, no, 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 no. He can help. He's a nurse. This man is grossly overweight. His daughter is grossly overweight. He's had a toe amputated because diabetes, something, I don't know the full story. Because his health is so messed up, his toe was amputated. To me, that degree, that nursing education you have means nothing to me. First off, I don't need somebody who knows what the information is. I need somebody who knows it and can apply it. Okay?
Kamelah, can I ask
this
you one
help.
quick question?
Sure.
How do you start an IV? Do you know?
No idea. No idea.
Okay, he knows. He knows. That's what I'm saying. Like, I get he doesn't have a toe. I'm not asking him to do like heavy labor. He knows it for the books. He knows it for other people. If he can't do it for himself, that's fine. Because you with your eyes and your judgments, me with my opinions, great, great, great. When the rubber hits the road, are my opinions going to save anybody's life? Is my advice going to help anybody? No. Is him being able to do CPR going to make a difference? Yes. Is him being able to start and stop an IV going to make a difference in a hospital? Yes. Should he be stopped from saving someone's life, giving them CPR, doing his job because he's big? No. Do you want to look at it? No. Does it matter? No.
Because of his optics, because of the amputation, I don't trust your judgment. And in a situation where I'm so vulnerable, right? I've never been I'm not an emotional person. I consider myself to be very logical. In a situation where both of my parents are in the hospital, I cannot dice roll and just hope that you know what you're talking about. I can look at you and tell that you can't apply anything that you learned to your own life. I want this skinny white girl. I want her that looks like she bikes to work. I want this lady who looks like she takes her lunch break in the parking lot and does push-ups. I want this woman. You help me with my parents. You half child from another situation that doesn't matter to anybody. You accident, go on with your life. You go do something else. I don't have the time to figure out who's capable and who's not. From you, just from looking at you, you have some deficiencies. Just from knowing that you've had this, why am I getting passionate about this, Matt? Just from knowing that you've had this toe amputated. I don't have time to, maybe he can implement it for my parents. Maybe I don't have time for that. I'm looking at the well-fit, well taken care of, very healthy, very capable looking individual. I want her. I don't have time to play with you. You've already proven to me. I can see for a fact that you can't take care of yourself. And you want me in the most vulnerable state that I've ever been in to ask you to take care of my parents?
I have never in my life been in an emergency and thought, why can't somebody skinny help me? I'm sorry. I just don't, I don't get any of that. I do not understand any of it.
It's not why can't somebody skinny help me. It's you don't look capable. So if I'm about to run a race, right? I'm not about to if I have to run a foot race, I'm not about to choose the man in a wheelchair.
If you're willing to be surprised about my knowledge of religion, why aren't you willing to be surprised then? If you can be open-minded somewhere, what?
I've never been a gambler. I've never been a gambler.
I can't imagine a bigger gambler than asking Tiffany, who eats whatever she wants and has the metabolism from Jesus. Like it's like thinking that your friends that come from 3 generations of wealth have all the financial stuff figured out. No, they've just actually never had to try, and it gives the appearance of knowledge. It is up to you to know more than to accept just what you see. Because if we go off appearances for everything, we end up in hell. It's like the wrinkle creams that you see the commercials for on TV. They reduce the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles. Yo ass is still going to look a mess, but the appearance will be reduced for a short period of time. Like, do you want the mess now? Do you want the mess later?
I hear what you're saying.
And then also you got to remember, thin also has a lot to do with age. I would much rather have the nurse that's been around for 25 years that's seen every emergency. That's also eating half the crap there. I trust her experience and her life and her slower metabolism. I trust her.
Maturity, yes.
No.
Maturity, yes.
Mhm.
But when my father's other child came, and I was just like,
they're taking your blood pressure. They're not fighting a fire. I don't see how it matters. I don't see how it matters at all.
I didn't feel the comfort of being like, this person's knowledgeable. And
I
that
have
goes
never
on.
once thought a doctor was too fat to know what they were talking about. It's just never crossed my mind.
Really?
Doctors used to smoke while they delivered children. When my brother was born in 1984, the doctor was doing the C-section and smoking with his free hand. Don't look. That's not up. You're asking him to do the wrong things at the wrong time. Like, no.
You know what?
No.
I have a lawyer, and before this lawyer, I was looking for lawyers. I had a lawyer send me a document with so many typos.
Mm-hmm.
And when I called him on the phone, it was hard for him to string a sentence together.
Mm-hmm.
We're done.
That's
We're done.
different because he was literally showing you a lack of cognition. How you speak is how you think, and how you write is how you think when you're organized. He can't think. That's completely different than if someone's fat or not. You have no idea what they looked like 3 years ago. They could have thrown out their back, been in bed for 6 months, and just not, everything's completely different. You do not know. You might think that they're fat and disgusting. They could have weighed 100 pounds more last year, and this might be great for them. You don't know. None of us do. It is not reasonable, logical, or causal to assume. It just isn't. You do not have sufficient context to make that judgment in that moment. Your emotions tell you that you do, but real logic would argue. You have no idea what their situation is, none whatsoever.
Let's say you needed to lose weight and you called a trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And your trainer comes, and your trainer is
Mm-hmm.
morbidly obese.
Mm-hmm.
Never won a competition, swimsuit, never competed, anything. You just have a fat trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And they're charging you $75, $100 an hour. Would you continue to go to this trainer when your options are, you can go to an ex-Olympian, you can go to someone who's trained with professional sports teams, you can go to someone who looks like Zeus, looks like a Greek god, okay? Why would you choose just off a benefit of the doubt? Well, maybe they had a hard year. Maybe they had a hard month.
Two things I'd say there.
Mhm.
First of all, I know they're going to show me some shit that I can do. Whatever they show me, I'm not going to say I can't do that. Second of all, why would I go to the person who looks like this? This is my perfect counter, and this person was around for 40 years. Did anybody wake up in the morning and say, I want to look like Richard Simmons? No. Did he help thousands of people lose weight? Yes. So I don't care what they look like. I don't care. You can't make me.
I like Richard Simmons.
There you go. But no one ever said, I want to be like a 5'5" Jewish guy and have an afro in 1981. That's the body I want. No, they said, he seems like he knows what he's talking about. He can help me. It's not about trying to look like him. It's about going to the person who knows what they're talking about. No, if we follow that logic, a university would never work. I'm a program coordinator for medical research. I don't have a PhD in biomedical sciences. I can run the program. I also didn't go to dental school, and I ran one for 2.5 years. You do not need to go to the person who looks like whatever. You need to go to the person who can whatever.
I don't think it's looks. I think it's applied knowledge. I can look at you and tell you, these exercising you're telling me to do, have you applied it to your own life? It doesn't seem like you've applied it to your own life. Doctor telling me this is what I need to eat, this is what I need to do, a nutritionist, and you're overweight. You haven't applied this information to your own life.
I'll bring back my classical music experience. The best voice teachers in the world do not have star careers. The biggest star singers in the world are terrible voice teachers. It is not the same skill. It is simply not the same skill. Being able to do it and being able to teach people how to think so that way they can unlock the ability to do it is not the same skill. There are some overlaps, but there is a complete, by that logic, every single coach for every single sports team should have won every award available to them. But you do not need a Stanley Cup to coach an NHL team. You don't need to have 5 Super Bowl rings to coach an NFL team. It's a different skill. You're supposed to do it. They're not supposed to do it. They're supposed to help you figure out how to do it. They don't need to look like they can do it. You need to do it. You are shifting the point of conversation to make it about them instead of you. What about your fat ass wanting the liposuction? Let's stop talking about the nurse. What about your fat ass? It's about
Right.
how we talk about sex work as work. Well, what about the guys who buy it and what's wrong with them? Let's stop talking about the strippers and the woman who didn't finish school. Let's start talking about these creepy ass guys. Like it's like how rich white people always want to ask, how did this happen? Why? They never want to ask, what am I supposed to do? Stop shifting the damn blame and deal with your spot in it and what really matters. That's the priority. That's where my mind's at. Because if you use your logic of she's so fat, she shouldn't be a nurse, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Well, we shouldn't offer liposuction because if you got so fat in the first place, how do you even have enough work ethic to have a job to be able to pay for the surgery? And how'd we get there? If you're so fat and lazy, how'd we get to the point where you can afford to do? You see what I'm saying? It doesn't pan out. It's just one way to try and be mean and control people. Like, no, they're fine.
I don't think it's being mean. I don't think it's being mean and controlling people. I feel like you have eyes for a reason. So a friend of mine, we're no longer friends. She dated a guy that had face tattoos. This was like in my early 20s.
Yeah.
Okay. She dated a guy that had face tattoos. His dad used to beat his mom. He's been a few years in prison. So she calls us and she's like, he hit me.
Well, yeah, they do.
And I'm like, right.
Yeah.
You thought he wouldn't? I was more shocked that she thought he wouldn't. And she's like, well, I don't judge people on their looks. I don't judge. Well, you're a little crazy if you have a face tattoo. It's something's off. Face tattoos have been linked with gang affiliation or mental health issue or a combination of both. Okay?
Yeah.
Statistics. So you're dating a man that has face tattoos everywhere. And now you're looking surprised that, oh, he hit me. He won't let me leave the house. I don't know what to do. Girl, what are your eyes for?
But you know what we weren't surprised by in that situation and how she got in it for the first place? Using those same eyes. Because you hear the prison stories and you hear about the parents being crazy and you see the face tattoos and you think sex with this guy is going to be athletic. And she would.
Is that what you got from that?
Yes. So she used her eyes. She used her eyes to put all that together and get the first thing she wanted out of it. But then the second thing comes around and she acts all brand new.
This guy is going to be athletic.
Because it's like how guys always say that crazy girls are always the best in the bedroom. Well, it's the same thing on the reverse, but then they all get all shocked and surprised when the crazy part happens. No, they go together, and you knew that. You just ignored the unpleasant part because you're stupid.
Right. So how is me judging people visually in healthcare situations by their weight? How is that not different from me
because
judging
you don't
people?
want it turned back on you? Because if you go back with a complaint that has nothing to do about your weight and they keep saying you need to lose 30 pounds, you're going to be red hot. That's why.
No, if they said like, oh, your blood pressure is too high or this.
No. At the beginning of that, if you go in with a complaint that is unrelated to your weight, And
Hmm.
if you go in there looking for birth control and they say, well, we give you this Mirena, but you need to lose 20 pounds. I mean, there's nothing about the IUD that says you need to. I just don't feel comfortable looking at your big fat ass. Like, that happens to women all the time. Like, there are when large people go to the doctor, they will regularly get unrelated concerns dismissed. That's why it's not fair.
About
I
their
can't
weight.
say, yeah, I can't say that they're too fat to do their job if you're going to say that I'm too fat to have a health problem that's not related to being fat. If I don't want it to work both ways, I have to have the same empathy and compassion I would like to exist for.
So you know what? A friend of mine was a paramedic. I hear what you're saying, and it makes sense to me. It makes
Okay.
sense. But what I'm saying feels like it makes sense to me as
Hmm.
well. A friend of mine was a paramedic, and he used to tell me, when you go to the doctor, they'll ask you, oh, do you smoke? How often? Do you drink? How often? And he was like, no matter how much you drink or smoke, don't answer these questions and be like, I don't drink, I don't smoke. Because they'll try to tie everything from that point on to you smoking or drinking.
Hmm.
So I see what you're saying about the weight and doctors trying to tie everything up
Hmm.
into the weight. But in doctors' defense, your weight could be causing a lot of different issues. Yeah,
Hmm.
you're here for birth control, but while we're here, I'm a medical professional. This is something else you need to work on. Is that not acceptable?
I don't always think it's the point. If I go to therapy for complex childhood trauma, do we
Okay,
need to go through the Jordan Peterson route of have you tried cleaning your room? You're not helping, stupid. You're not
right.
helping. You're not helping.
Okay. So if I go to my doctor for a skin condition
Hmm.
and he stops me and he says, well, you have breast cancer, I'm going to be like, okay, I came in here for my skin needing to be cleared up, but this is a
Hmm.
bigger problem. Yes, let's address that too.
You didn't know you had breast cancer when you walked into the office. You knew you were fat when you did. So that
So,
no one has ever gone to the doctor's office, stepped on the scale, and said, no, this is broken. Me? No. I'm only wearing a 3X. You've got to be joking. That's like, people know. They're not stupid. Maybe they don't want to deal with everything. Maybe they haven't figured out how to deal with everything, but no one's surprised. No one says, I weigh 300 pounds. Me? I was wearing a size 8. I was running marathons every other week. I weigh 300 pounds. But people have said, what? I take care of my kids every day. I've been going to work. I have a tumor in my breast. You can't be serious. One is a realistic situation. The other is not. And we both know
Okay. I'm going to send you a video of this lady on My 300-Pound Life with Dr. Nazarian.
it.
And
Hmm.
he's telling her she's fat and she needs to stop eating. And
Hmm.
she's like, it's water weight. She was like, it's water weight. I'm retaining water. And he's like, you're not retaining 300 pounds worth of water, lady. And they're going back and forth. So I don't know.
Hmm.
People are delusional. People are delusional.
Hmm. When I say nobody does that, obviously there are cases, just like there are people who feel like God's telling them that they need to cut their arms and legs off. Like, when I say nobody does that, that's like nobody isn't generally. It does exist, but
Mhm.
by and large, nobody, when I say nobody, I'm saying 95, 98%, everybody knows how big they are. Now, are some people who are like on the cusp between overweight and obese surprised that the BMI is actually 30? Yeah, they thought that was okay. Yeah. But I'm saying nobody has no clue. Nobody has absolutely no clue.
Okay.
Nobody says, but I
Okay.
don't even shop in the plus size section. What do you mean I weigh 400 pounds? Like, you have a couple hints on your way to medical intervention. You aren't just shopping the double zeros at Hollister and then you get shocked. But you can go to Target, go to Starbucks, and then get told you have breast cancer and be totally shocked. You can be told that you have a fibroid that weighs 8 pounds and have no idea. No one's ever been told that they're fat and they just didn't
I feel like this goes under my category of having information
know.
and not utilizing that information to make an informed decision on if you should
Mm-hmm.
move forward with someone or not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you should ignore everything about a person. I don't think you should ignore
I'm down
the
to have a
size.
conversation about contributory negligence. I think that's worth
Yeah.
discussing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I saw a video of a girl. I have to send this to you. This man, she moved into a man's house with her daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And every day this man is telling her, "You need to leave my house or I'm going to kill you."
Mm-hmm.
He's walking around the house with a gun. Every
Mm-hmm.
day he's calling her, he's pointing the gun at her. 3 times a day she's calling the police. This woman refuses to leave the house.
She has a death wish. She has no self-preservation. It's like that last time we were talking about how it's an addiction that just overrides your sense of self-preservation.
Mm-hmm.
It's another OJ and Nicole situation. Like, you can't spend all day on the phone with the police. Like, the police cannot protect you against a determined murderer.
Right.
Like, you got to be smarter than the Hallmark Channel. Okay, I know we want to believe that love's real, but stop it.
So
Contributory negligence. If you do not do anything to protect yourself,
contributory negligence.
if you do not do anything to protect yourself and terrible happens to you, it's you don't walk through an alley barefoot and naked and then wonder why your feet are cut up with glass, how you stepped on that dirty needle, and why you have hepatitis. If you do nothing to protect yourself, bad things are going to happen to you and it will be your fault. Yes, I agree with
What's the
that.
difference between protecting yourself in that situation and protecting yourself on a smaller scale, like not taking bad medical advice or not taking advice from somebody who's not qualified? I feel like if your nurse is fat and she's prescribing you weight loss pills, girl, if this works, why aren't you on it? If this makes sense, then why aren't you using it? Now,
I don't think anybody knows the side effects of all those medications and all those surgeries better than the people who administer them. And that's why they don't do it, because they'd rather be fat than have all their hair fall out, never be able to drink straight water again, and to not be able to digest half the food that's at the grocery store. I think most of them know that when you take Ozempic, there is a chance that your internal intestinal situation kind of stops working. There are people that have like lazy bowel after they're on Ozempic. There are people who, when they stop taking Ozempic, they gain all the weight back, no matter if they eat really well or not. I think the people in the field know that they're selling us garbage, and that's why they don't take it, and they take their own chances.
all the more reason not to take the weight loss pill from the fat girl. Because if it worked, you would have been taking it.
Okay, but if the skinny nurse who isn't taking it because she doesn't need to is giving it to you, you just want to feel better while you have a terrible experience. You are looking to placate emotions that have no place in that situation. Because the side effects don't change depending on who gives it to you.
Correct.
They are real no matter what. You just want therapeutic customer service on your way to hell. Get over it.
Am I going to hell, Matt?
If you're taking that shit, yes.
I don't want the fat person exercising with me, if I don't want the fat person being my personal trainer, to me, that's common sense.
Really?
To me, I don't want a bald guy giving me a hair grow cream. I want him to look like Fabio. Mm-hmm. And then you give me the hair loss cream. Because obviously it's working. This is why you don't see bald people in hair regrowth commercials. It doesn't make sense. That's why you have to have a before and after in weight loss commercials. That makes sense.
You are confusing marketing with reality. They're not the same thing. You are confusing the difference between how something is sold to you and how it plays out in real life. Because there's not a single product on this earth that works out in real life the way it's sold to you. The food does not look the same way in the commercial. Like nothing's the same. It's not the same experience. It's not the same size, same shape, same flavor, same smell. Nothing's the same. You're asking for something that doesn't exist, because for you to get a perfect experience out of anything would then require a perfect person. Jesus died 2,000 years ago. So you're not getting it.
I don't know if I want a person. You could be bald and slim and be my personal trainer because I'm here for your fitness. And if you're fit, that's good. You could be bald. I'm not here for hair, right? If you got body, yaddy, 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 and you got a big booty and you tell me it's natural and this is how you did it, I'm more comfortable working out with her than the fat girl. I don't know why this isn't.
I will say my position comes from my like deep cultural studies, whether it's Black American culture, Latin American culture, whatever you're looking at. You only really find anything out about a group or a system by studying who's at the bottom. If you want to know anything about the weight loss industry, you need to talk to all the fat people it let down. You don't need to talk to the person who was born skinny and never had to work to be skinny about how great the weight loss industry is. If you want to find out about white capitalism, you need to find out what's happening in the most broken down communities of color. You find out about the oppressor or the power from the people that it is underneath. The people who are winning know nothing. They are, that's the whole point. They don't need to know anything. The people that are on the underside of the boot are where you pay attention if you want to know how anything works. It's the same way that I, as a gay man, can tell straight men way more about masculinity and way more about women because I've had to think much more carefully about both. They haven't had to. They don't need to.
Okay.
The person who's on the other side of it knows more. It doesn't look like that because it's not supposed to look like that. The system wouldn't stay that way if the truth was obvious.
Okay. I hear what you're saying and it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But you also sound like baby mama number 6. You sound like the person who are like, well, it's not me. It's like, let's give it a try. Like, how do you know he's not a bad guy? How do you know he's not going to stay with me? How do you know he's not going to marry me? I don't want to judge him off of what he's done in his past. I don't want to judge him off of that. Well, yeah, he got 5 baby mamas and he has 5 kids, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to treat me right. That doesn't. And it's like, look at the catalog of information and data that you have, okay? And I don't think it's marketing. I think it's applying this to your life. So all of a sudden, he's going to make you a wife and he's going to settle down with this one kid. And I think this is like baby mama number 5 syndrome.
I don't think that's the same thing. I would argue I see that more in your position because I see that you, like someone who thinks that way is looking to be lied to and to be made comfortable regardless of the facts. That they don't care if he has 14 other girlfriends because like everything looks fine right now and that's all I care about. Like I am not necessarily I don't see it that way because I'm not ignoring what's going on. I'm saying that subjugated knowledge has value. If you look where everyone else is looking, you know what everybody else knows, and they're stupid and miserable. Try something else. Try something else. It may not work, but at least you won't end up like them.
Yeah. I feel like knowledge is almost useless if you can't apply it to yourself.
I don't judge people's professional record based off their personal life because some of the most boss ass people, men and women in any industry, are like crazy alcoholics with terrible personal lives when they're not at work. That doesn't mean they're not closing the deal. That doesn't mean that they don't know what they're doing. I don't care. That's not the point. We can talk about them being, overweight and having personal problems and this and that off the clock. Because while they're on the clock, they might be a genius, and that's more important.
But you wouldn't go to that person that's an alcoholic and drinking. You wouldn't go to them and ask them how they stop drinking, or how do you get off the alcohol, or how do you leave it alone for good. Clearly, they cannot implement that for themselves. So how would they give you the knowledge for you to implement it when it's way more easier to control yourself? So instead of them controlling their
That is a lie. It is so much easier to control other people than yourself. Why do you think everyone has kids? So they can control someone else because they can't be responsible for themselves. Nobody can control themselves. It's the hardest thing in the world to control yourself. Why is everybody a fat addict who won't read? Controlling yourself is the hardest thing to do. That's why people go to work, and that's why people have children, and that's why people get in relationships, to boss other people around. Nobody can control themselves. They try to control other people to distract. Nobody can control themselves. Nobody. If you run 3 businesses, are you controlling yourself or everything around you? You don't run shit in your own head even. Nobody can control themselves.
What?
Mm-hmm.
That made sense to me. I'm blown away. That made sense to me. I've always said, like, it's easier to control yourself than it is to control other people. So for you to control other people is ridiculous. For you to say you should do this or you should do that, I think that's ridiculous. When you should be able to lose weight. Me telling you how to lose weight is ridiculous if I can't do it myself. That was a interesting point. But Matt, I'm trying to respect you and respect your time because you're so good to us. And you're so patient and you're so kind. And even when you disagree and you call me stupid, you do it in a loving.
Yes. And with the Kentucky bless your heart.
Oh, thank
There
you.
you go. There you go.
And the pat on the head, bless your heart.
Sweet baby.
My coworker wanted your address because you were sick and not feeling well, and everybody was like, "Can we send him a card? Can we send him a gift?" And I was like, "No," because he thinks we're all crazy and we're stalkers, so he doesn't want us to have his address.
That's sweet. You're sweet.
Yeah, but everybody here was very concerned about you, and I'm glad you're looking better and you're feeling better. I'm glad you're doing
And
okay.
that's why I am so red hot on the medical issue, because when I was in the hospital a couple weeks ago, I saw 3 young, pretty white nurses. Well, no, they weren't all white, but 3 young, pretty nurses, white and Latina, who didn't know anything. They lost my pee. They lost a patient. They didn't know anything. So I don't want to. There's a lot more to that job than being thin. And I would have much rather had a 50-year-old woman around who had been doing that job for 25 years, who could have just ran the floor. And if she weighed 300 pounds, great. That guy wouldn't have been able to escape. She could have been an obstacle and a barrier.
Okay. All right. Good point. And this is why we love you. Can we do this again?
Absolutely.
I love it.
Absolutely. And hopefully soon.
Thank you. So thank you so much, Matt, Miss Brown, for coming. You're a comedian.
Thank you so much.
You're so much more than that. You're a plethora of information. You're good conversation. And we value you here and we love you. And if you need anything, we would love to support you in anything you do. So let us know.
Well, thank you so much. I always have a good time coming here. And thank you for always giving me something smart to debate and consider. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day, okay?
Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.